Hello everybody! It's finally March 2020 and it's time for another update of the Disneyland Magical Audio Tour. We have got so much to cover. I have had a very busy February and I'd like to bring you up to date on all the happenings over the past month and give you a preview of what's to come for next month. Before we get started, first of all, we have a couple holidays this month. The first one, of course, is St. Patrick's Day, so I'd like to wish you all a very happy St. Patrick's Day. And also, the first day of spring is going to be on March 19th, so welcome to spring. And of course, as always, before anything else, I'd like to thank all of you for your continued support of all of my online endeavors, including my website, DisneyChris.com, Dateline Jiminy Crickets, which is my YouTube news program, and the Jiminy Crickets podcast. And I have some updates regarding all of those things, but I'd just like to say, before anything else, thank you to everyone, because without you, there would be no Disney Chris or any podcasts. Because, as Walt Disney once said, it takes people to make a dream a reality, right? So, we have a few little bits of housekeeping before I get on to updating the Magical Audio Tour. I'd like to remind all of you that I do have a Patreon, and on the Patreon you are helping to support my podcasts as well as the DisneyChris.com website, which is home to the Disneyland Magical Audio Tour. So look up Disney Chris on Patreon, and for as low as $5 a month you get a lot of really special bonus content that's exclusive and you won't find anywhere else, including a exclusive monthly podcast, commentaries of Disney classic animated shorts, and documentaries of the Disneyland Park, and Ruthie, my co-host from Dateline Jiminy Crickets and the Jiminy Crickets podcast, as well as my good friend Brian Crawford. We do a commentary over these classic documentaries and classic animated shorts. We also offer free musical content every month, and we also have, if you are a recurring donator and over a period of time, we offer a t-shirt or a mug for your continued support. So once you've reached a certain amount of time as a subscriber, we'll send one out to you. The other thing I'd like to mention is that we have an online store now, and this is where you can just go ahead and purchase a t-shirt or a mug. And we also have other items like stickers and notebooks, and we have bags and backpacks, all sorts of fun stuff available in all the t-shirts are available in different colors, different sizes, men's and women's styles, children's styles. And to go to the store, you want to visit jcpodcast.threadless.com. And on there you can choose what design you want. We offer two designs, the DisneyChris.com compass design, as well as the JC Dateline Jiminy Crickets podcast logo. So be sure to check that out. And next, I'd like to just remind you all that we are on Instagram. And on Instagram you'll find me at DisneyChris_JC_podcast. And we have over 500 very colorful, beautiful Disney images, and I'm always adding more. I'm very selective about the images that we post, so if you want to have some bright and colorful images to help cheer your day, be sure to follow us on Instagram. now that the housekeeping portion of the program is concluded, let's have some fun. And speaking of fun, for the March Song of the Day, I have two little special blocks of songs throughout the month. The first one will run for about a week from March 10th through the 17th. And all of the songs during that period are going to be St. Patrick's Day themed. From March 18th through the 22nd, I'm going to have a special block of songs that are springtime themed in order to usher in the first day of spring, which will be this year on March 19th. So you have that to look forward to over the course of March. Another thing you have to look forward to is I'm going to be releasing two podcasts of our regular Jiminy Crickets podcast show. The first one was supposed to be issued in late February, but due to a medical emergency, I had to sort of push everything up by a week. I was in the hospital, and I'm fine. I'm back to good health, but I sort of lost a little time with all of that, so our Pinocchio episode, which I had previously in my last update said would be released in February, it's going to be released in early this month, probably within a week of today. And we have another new show which will be released by the end of the month, which will be a special Cinderella 70th anniversary episode. So we're going to actually have two episodes of the regular audio Jiminy Crickets podcast. Now, normally I do try to post these episodes on my YouTube channel, but because I want to include a lot of the music from these two classic Disney movies, I'm not going to be able to share them on YouTube because they will instantly take down the videos with that music. But you will still be able to listen to them on my regular podcast stream, which is, I think, the website you can go to listen to those, plus all of our past catalog of shows. We're nearing our 120th episode, is jcricketpodcast.blogspot.com. We're on Blogspot, so you can find all of them there. The other thing I should mention is our other two podcasts. First of all, Dateline Jiminy Crickets is a YouTube show. It's a audio-visual show, so even though I do release it as an audio program, the best way to experience it is by watching it on YouTube. We show lots of videos and graphics and pictures and all sorts of fun stuff. So that's the optimal way, but you can also listen to it. And we release these once a month. Again, we were going to release this episode this week, but because of my medical issue, which, don't worry, it's been taken care of. I'm perfectly fine now. The episode is going to be released the second week of March. And boy howdy do we have a lot to talk about as far as the news. There's been a lot of big stories, so be sure to check that out. Second week in March. Now, our other podcast, as I mentioned before, it's exclusive to our Patreon subscribers, and it's called Down the Rabbit Hole. We call it that because it's sort of an open discussion, and we sort of let the conversation lead wherever it takes us. So we're sort of deciding what we're going to talk about for March, but we're thinking about talking about Club 33, because I have a friend that's going to have the opportunity to visit Club 33, And as you may or may not know, Ruthie has visited Club 33, so I thought it might be fun to discuss it, and I thought I would throw in some of my opinions about the changes that were made in the past few years to the club and how I feel about those changes. Even though I have not yet had the opportunity to visit Club 33, I have my opinions, as I'm sure you would guess. So, that's sort of everything except for the audio tour. So let's get to what the majority of you came to hear about, and that is the Disneyland Magical Audio Tour. Now, I have to sort of explain something about, well, I'll get to that in a minute. First of all, there's two lists I want to show you. I made some lists. Well, I made a new list, but I want to show you my old list. And this is basically my to-do list. And this shows basically everything I have left to work on. And I have it color-coded. Everything that is highlighted in yellow is set up for the final cleaning stage, where I listen to the entire track with not with headphones, but really close to my speakers, and I listen for any skips or errors or pops or whatever, and one by one, by hand, clean all those up. Now, depending on how many I hear, depends on how long these will take to clean. So these can take 5 minutes or they can take 5 days, depending on how difficult they are. The ones that are marked in gray are done, and they're already on the website. And the one you see in blue is set up, but there's something I want to do differently with it. And I want to see if I can make something a little bit better. I'll get into that when the time comes, but it basically is yellow, but there's a couple caveats to it being yellow, so I put it in blue. And that's, I think, the only one that is blue. All the others are either white, yellow, or gray. And there's only a couple that are white. Oh, and red. There's always something else. Okay, so red means that I don't have all the materials I need yet. I'm still waiting on that. It's a work in progress to gather the materials that I need, and I've mentioned these before, so I'm not going to get into all that. But I just wanted you to sort of see where the list stands. Now, my Disneyland Railroad tracks used to be red. Now you'll notice they're white. That's because I have what I need in order to do the initial editing phase. If I had already done the initial editing phase, it would be yellow. But now I'm able to set these up for final cleanup. I just haven't done it yet. But I can do it. I have all the materials I need in order to do that. So that's a good thing. And basically, I have all my bells and all my whistles, because these are the train tracks. There's another pun, train tracks. I'm being very punny today. So, as you can see, since the last time you probably looked at this list, last month's video, I have a lot more in gray, which means they're done, than I did the last time. So I have been busy adding new stuff. Quite a bit of new stuff. So I sort of reached a point where I wanted to sort of give myself a little bit of a focus, and that's where my next list comes in. Because the next thing I want to work on are all of the area loops that I have for chapters 1 through 6 and chapters 19 through 27. I only really have any for 19 and 20. So it's basically, this list involves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chapters. Of which 2 of them I've already completed. So now I'm down to just 5 chapters. Now what this list is all the area loops, or semi sort of related to that sort of thing, where it's a grouping of songs that run as sort of a mix that's like 45 minutes to an hour and a half, or however long it is. But so far I've completed, since I created this list, I've completed 6, 7, 8 of them. And there were 22, so 22 minus 8 is, I guess I have 14 left to go. And actually what you're listening to, I thought I'd play one of the loops that I finished. You're listening to the Disneyland Paris Main Street area loop. I thought I would share that with you all, since it's a recent addition to the tour. So that's what you're hearing right now. So this is sort of my current project. And once I finish these tracks, I'll go and I'll figure out another project. But it'll all involve whittling down that massive to-do list. Now, once I get all those done, I'm going to start working on the middle chapters and do the exact same thing. So I'll be working on chapters 7 through 18. So that's phase 2. So if you notice that chapters 7 through 18 are a little measly compared to the others, that's why. I have tons to add, but I'm decided to split it into 2 stages just for my own sanity. So, that's what's going on project-wise. Let's talk about what I accomplished last month. And I sort of decided before recording today that I needed to sort of do this in a certain way just to keep this video from being 5 hours long. Now, I've added tracks to chapters 1 through 6 and chapters 19 through 27. On the last update, the February update, I talked about all the chapters that I had fully updated. So I believe that included chapter 5, which is the parade chapter, and the holiday chapters, the holiday time in Disneyland, Disneyland After Dark, and Disneyland Records. So, if you want to find out all of the details, in great detail, on those chapters, go back, if you haven't already, and watch the February update. Nothing has changed on those chapters because, like I said, those were already completed. Now, I mentioned on the last video that for the March video, I would talk about any more chapters that are fully completed. And this is just because it just makes it less of a 5-hour long video than it could be. However, I haven't finished completely any more of the chapters, so I've decided to break it down. So this video, I'm going to talk about 4 chapters that are not fully updated. I'm going to talk about chapters 1 through 4 and bring you up to date on how far along I've come on those chapters, talk about what's coming to those chapters soon, what I've recently added, and give you a full update and preview of these 4 chapters you're looking at now. Now, in the April video, I will do the rest of the chapters that I haven't already talked about. Once that's done, going forward for May, June, July, August, yada yada, I'll just talk about what's been added. But because I've added so many tracks, I feel like this is the best way to handle this. So again, you can look at the update for chapters 5, 21, 24, 25, and 26 on the last video from February. today I'm only talking about chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. Which means in April I'm going to talk about chapter 6, 19, 20, and 27. So just remember that, okay? The reason I'm not talking about 22 and I'm not talking about 23 is because those haven't been changed since last year. They've already were completed, so I haven't done anything to those, so I'm skipping those, just to clarify. If you have any questions or you're confused, just email me and I'll be glad to explain it to you better. DCLyndon, L-Y-N-D-O-N, DCLYNDON @gmail.com. You can email me anytime, or you can just leave a comment in the video here, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if you're confused. I hope you're not. I tried my best to explain it. Anyway, let's get on to it. Now that I've completely bored you all with my lengthy explanation, let's just get on with it already. Okay, so here is chapter 1. I'm just going to go through it. I'm going to scroll down, and anything that I see that I need to tell you about, I'll tell you about. If it hasn't changed in, since 2019, I'll just skip over it. But anything that I've made changes to, I'll tell you what's going on. Okay, so one thing that I changed, and they might not say new anymore because it might have been more than a month since I made the changes, so I might mention some of the things that, see, this one says new, but this one doesn't. But I do need to tell you that I changed that one. So first of all, welcome to Disneyland. I made a couple really minor changes to this track. I added a little bit of Royal Dano doing some of his Lincoln speech. That had not been included before. And I also changed the audio of the Disneyland Railroad sound effects. Because like I told you a few minutes ago, I now have the authentic bells and whistles. So I went ahead and fixed this track so that it has the authentic sound effects for the Disneyland Railroad. And then while I was at it, I added a little bit of that Royal Dano because I felt like when I listened to this, I always felt like I should have included it. So I went ahead and squeezed it in. And it came out really good, so I'm happy with it. Where it all began, Walt Disney, I just basically changed the background music for this track. It's the interview where Walt Disney says how he was sitting on a bench eating peanuts and he felt there should be some sort of amusement enterprise where parents and children can have fun together. I just sort of made it a little more, I don't know. Before I had carousel music under it. Now I have some When You Wish Upon a Star orchestral music that's really nice. So I just made it a little more, I don't know, wistful, romantic. I'm skipping these because I haven't made any changes to any of these things. So, Dateline Disneyland Opening Day Live broadcast coming soon. This is going to be a real doozy to do the final cleanup on because it's taken from the live 1955 broadcast, and there's a lot of issues with the sound quality and skipping and pops, and I want to try to make it as clean and as perfect as I possibly can. I spent a whole lot of time setting it up so that the transitions are smooth. I tried to make it so that it's not like it really was, where they made all sorts of mistakes and everything. I tried to edit all that out to make it sound like it was perfect and nothing went wrong. And I just, I spent a lot of time working on that, and then now I just have to go back and clean up any background noises or issues with the sound quality and whatnot. That's going to take me, that's going to be a major project, so I've sort of been skipping it for a while until I have the energy to get to it. Same thing can be said for this track, which is the live broadcast for Disneyland 59. I did the same thing. I edited out any live television faux pas and tried to make everything transition really smoothly from one thing to the other. Really did a big cleanup on it. But now I need to do the nitty-gritty cleanup, just like with the Dateline Disneyland. So that's why these two are sort of, for some time, have been coming soon, because they're going to be a major project to do the final cleanup on. Same thing with this Disneyland 10th anniversary. Most of it is all nice and easy, you know, it's all from film footage, and all the dialogue is, you know, it was recorded in a studio and whatnot. But the opening segment is a mess. When he's walking around with the ambassador Julie Ream, they're just shuffling. You hear the shuffling on the floor and banging into things, and that's fine when you're watching a video of it, but when you're listening to it, when it's an audio experience, it's distracting. So I'm doing my very best to try to clean all that up, and it's only one segment of it. Once I get that part of it done, the rest of the episode is a piece of cake to clean up. So one thing I was considering is adding background music, appropriate background music during the Julie Ream segment. That's why I have it marked in blue on my to-do list, because I'm thinking about trying some experimenting and seeing if I can do something to sort of mask all that shuffling around and everything that you hear. So that's why I had that marked in, that's the only thing I have marked in blue, because it is set up, but I might want to tinker with it a little more. Alright, now that you know the rest of the story. Okay, so this was a recent addition that I also have on my anniversary chapter, so I did mention it in the last video, but it's on both chapters. This is a live recording of Walt Disney at the Disneyland Hotel, speaking during a 10th anniversary, Disneyland 10th anniversary banquet. So I did a really careful job of cleaning up all the audio. It sounds really wonderful. It came out really well. I think you'll enjoy, so be sure to check that out. It's a real piece of nostalgia, and Walt Disney is talking, which is always a good thing. So moving along, none of these things have had any changes. Alright, so this is a, they used to do slideshows for cast members and investors and executives and whatnot. They used to put together slideshows, presentations, and usually this was handled by Jack Wagner, and he would do voiceover, and then they would show slides that corresponded with his narration. And I have one from the early 70s where he's talking about all the landscaping in Disneyland when they were still building Bear Country. Bear Country is mentioned, but it's at the time this was recorded, it was under construction. So what I did was I took that and I added background music to that matches, because he goes through each land, you know, so I have music that fits the theme of each land as he goes through the park. So that's going to be a lot of fun. The only issue is the sound quality of his narration. It was recorded on magnetic tape and it got worn, and it's a little wonky. I did my very best to clean it up. The music helps hide that, so I'm pretty much ready to do the final cleanup on that, so that'll be coming soon. I'm skipping all these because I haven't changed anything. They've been available to listen to for quite some time. Now, this Disney Tradition is a really old video, I think from the video. It's a film. They didn't do video back then. It was a film that they showed at the training for new cast members. I think it was shown at Disneyland and Walt Disney World. And it was called the Disney Tradition. And I found a better quality version of it. I had this on my site before, but I took it down and I found a cleaner copy of it. And I've already cleaned it up. It came out really good. I just have to do the final cleaning up on it, and it'll be added soon. So it's sort of a vintage training film. The Art of the Disney Theme Show is another training film from the early 80s. The sound quality is terrific. I just have to get to doing the final cleanup on it. But a friend of mine sent it to me who used to be a cast member back in the 80s. And it's going to be a Disney Chris exclusive. I think he might have posted the video of it on YouTube, or he plans on sharing it somehow. But he sent it to me because he wanted me to be able to use it on my site. The cast member orientation, again, is another Jack Wagner recording. This was specifically for cast members who were going to be working at the main entrance or Main Street USA. And it goes through all the different shops and attractions and restaurants and guest services in those two areas. And I believe this also would have been a slideshow presentation. And it already had music, so I just cleaned it up and everything. And that'll be added soon. Now this is another video that they showed to people that are new hires for Disney, and it's ready to be cleaned up and posted. Now this track is brand new, and this is one of the loops, one of the area loops that I'm working on my current project, doing the area loops. So this is really, I think this is the first one I completed. And what this is music you hear inside of the cast member hiring building and office building behind Disneyland. It's called Team Disney Anaheim. And they have TV monitors in the waiting area that play a closed circuit program of different information about working hours and park hours and coming events and whatnot. And this music is what plays through that video. I've seen video of that lobby area with it playing, but I don't know if they still use it. It's from a few years ago. They might still use the same music, I'm not sure, but I know at one point this was the music they were using. And you'll recognize it if you're a Disney World person, because it's the exact same loop that they use for the Magical Express bus service that takes you from the Orlando airport to the Walt Disney World hotels. It's a free shuttle service that they offer, and this is the music that was used for that as well. Moving right along, see if there's anything else. There are a couple more. Okay. I redid this track, entering Disneyland, the main gate tunnel, because again, I had the wrong train sound effects. I had sort of what I could find. And now that I have the authentic train sound effects, I recreated this with authentic audio. So this is a recent change. This is something that is on my list of area loops that I just recently added. The Disneyland Esplanade has a fairly newer area loop that it changed in 2017, so this is the current area music you hear at the entrance to Disneyland and California Adventure. And then this is the loop they used during the Pixar Fest event in 2018. So they had a temporary area loop during that event, and this is the area loop you heard. So that's included. I also added this Disneyland Explorer app track. It's an app from about 8 years ago that you could put on your mobile device, and it sort of gave you a tour of the park, and each area of the park had music playing on the app. So I included all of those musical bits and made a little track here for that. So that's basically your update of Chapter 1. So let's go to Chapter 2 and see what's changed over there and what's coming soon. So Chapter 2 is Town Square. Anything involving Town Square. So first of all, this Disneyland Main Gate entrance tunnel is the exact same track that I just talked about on Chapter 1. So just like that, I redid it because I have the authentic train sounds now. Town Square flagpole is fairly recently added, and it's Walt Disney saying the dedication, but not the live recording of it. It's a later recording that he did for a Radio City Music Hall presentation, where he reread it with better audio quality, and I have background music and everything for it. Dateline Disneyland Town Square Overview is a short segment from the live Dateline Disneyland broadcast where Art Linkletter is giving a preview of Town Square. This is coming soon, Jack Wagner Audio Tour for the Blind. It's about a half hour long. It's the entire audio tour. I have segments of it scattered all over this, all over the Magical Audio Tour when he's describing different things throughout the park. But I thought it would be nice to just have the entire thing in one place without any music or anything, just the dialogue. Because it's just dialogue, there's a lot of cleanup to do. You know, lip smacking, clicking, whatever. I find that whenever I'm cleaning up just dialogue with no music, it's kind of a chore. So that's why I've been putting this off. It's ready to go for final cleanup. I've just sort of been dreading doing it. Now, this is something I am waiting on the audio for. I want to find out exactly what... See, they have audio clips that they play during the guided tours now. They play, like, pieces of music and Walt Disney quotes and all sorts of different things. Because they hand you out a headset, and in addition to helping you hear the tour guide better, they also play clips on your headset as you pass different things. So I have a couple people that are planning on taking the tour, and they're going to make a list of everything that they use on the tour so that I can replicate all of those sound bites. So I'm waiting on that to happen. If anybody already knows the answer to that, let me know. If you've recently taken the tour, let me know. This one, A Walk in Walt's Footsteps, is actually, I need to rename these. This should be called A Walk in Walt's Footsteps, not Welcome to Disneyland, because that's what I'm looking for. In fact, after I'm done recording this video, I'm going to go change this, because I keep forgetting to do it. But this is just going to be a tour of the Disneyland Firehouse, this track. So what I'm doing for this is I have a video of an actual tour guide giving a tour of it, and I have a friend of mine that's going to re-record it for me so that it's cleaner and it's not a live recording. And then I'm going to use that to replicate a guided tour using his voice. I don't want to do it with my voice because I have my voice in so many places already. I want to vary. I don't want it to be my voice all the time. I want different voices doing it. So as soon as we can get together and record this together, then I'll be adding this to the site. That's why this is on hold. And if you'll remember, this is one of the ones that was marked in red on my to-do list. So remember, this would actually be Disneyland Guided Tour, A Walk in Walt's Footsteps. And this is going to be called Disneyland Firehouse Guided Tour. I'm going to take this part out. So I'll fix that later. Sorry for the confusion. So I recently added this, Beckons Van Lines. It's a commercial jingle for that company who used to sponsor the Lost and Found in the park. And then I also added this, which was already on my Disneyland Records chapter. This was a free record they handed out as a promotion in the mid-60s for a theatrical film that involved a moving van. So they sort of were involved in the production of A Country Coyote Goes to Hollywood. So when the movie came out, they handed out a free story record about it. So I decided to include that. Now this is a new addition, and this is one of the area loops that I worked on my list of area loops. And before I had the wrong music playing for this, found out what the correct music is, and I replaced it with the authentic area music that you quote-unquote can hear inside the Main Street Emporium. You actually, unless you have the hearing of a dog, you probably can't hear it. It's always so loud in there that it's very hard to hear it. But it does play in there, and if you pay really close attention, you'll hear it. So moving right along, here's another new addition. Vesey Walker Disneyland Band Opening Day Concert. This comes from the 1956 album called the Disneyland Band Concert, and it's just a mix of songs that were actually played on opening day, which sort of made it onto the album. Same arrangements that were on the album. Wurlitzer Music Store was already on the site. These all come from an album called The Life of the Party. I only included the first volume because there was a second album, Volume 2, that came out. So I decided to include both albums together. So this is the first and second album combined. And I also went in and did some cleanup on it. When I did that, I also replaced the tracks on the Disneyland Records chapter 26. But I didn't really make an announcement because those were already there. It was just, I replaced it with some slightly modified corrections. But this is the entire collection of Wurlitzer Music Store player piano music. I recently updated this track because I had some stuff from... I sort of fudged this together from stuff from the Hall of Presidents album from Walt Disney World. I did it so that instead of going up to Richard Nixon, it ends on Eisenhower, because that's when this was being developed for Disneyland, was when Eisenhower was president. Because this was originally where the Hall of Presidents would have been, but it never got built in Disneyland, and it finally opened in the 70s in Florida. So I included a little bit of the Hall of Presidents here, but I modified it. And I made some tweaks and just sort of improved it. It was on the site before, but I just sort of made it a little bit better. This is a new track that I just recently added, Walt Disney's Formal Office. I have 3 songs that I'm playing here that are piano solos, that are all songs that would have been played on Walt Disney's Grand Piano. The first one is The Sorcerer's Apprentice. The second one is There's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow. And then, of course, we end with Feed the Birds, all piano arrangements. The Walt Disney Story, I'm going to be replacing this with a slightly improved version. It'll be very much the same as what's here now, but I just made a few tweaks and just made it slightly better. I recently added this. I'm changing up the this track, Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. This is going to be replaced so that it's actually more of what was the 1965 version of the attraction when it first opened in the park, after it moved from the World's Fair. So I also redid the pre-show because of the changes I'm going to be making to the main show. So the pre-show is different than it used to be, and I haven't added the new version of the main show yet, but that's coming soon. Meanwhile, you can still listen to the older version I did. That's why it doesn't say coming soon here. It's a redo. This I recently extended. Originally it was just the Gettysburg Address, but I added a second segment to it, Letter to Fannie McCullough. And so this was there before, but it's an extended version of it. I also redid the Fifth Freedom mural. I sort of made some improvements to the editing that I had originally done. So be sure to check that out. This is a recent addition. It's a different version of the song Two Brothers. It's a recent cover version. And I'm also going to be adding it's not on here yet, you'll see it soon. I think I'm going to be replacing a track with it. Yeah, I'm going to be replacing this track with the 2000 and I think it's the 2008. It's the current version of Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. I have the entire source recording of it, which I'm going to be adding very soon. So this is going to become Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln 2008. I think it's 2008. I might have the year wrong, but it's the recent version of it. That's why I'm making the other one the 1960s version, because now I have a modern version and then I want to have the original version as well. There's a method to my madness, believe it or not. Okay, so I recently added this Bank of America track, which is some vintage jingles from Bank of America. This is going to be a segment from a Disney Channel series from the 80s called Disney Family Album, where Ward Kimball is talking about his Grizzly Flats Railroad. This is this new one is a section of Dateline Disneyland where the train is pulling into the station and Art Linkletter is introducing the train and Walt Disney and all of that. This Sounds of America is a segment from a 1961 TV special where they do sort of a little trip around the park on the railroads. This is my railroad section of the chapter, by the way. So everything sort of has a tie into the Disneyland Railroad. Now these Grand Circle tours are still coming soon. I'm also going to be redoing my 2015 version, and I'm going to try and add the current version. I have most of it. I'm missing a couple bits of it. If I'm still missing the couple bits of it that I need, I'll just fudge it and get as much of it as I can onto the chapter. Now this one's a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed working on this. This is the Lily Bell, and it's just sort of a tribute to the Lily Bell. It's a mix of songs that have a railroad theme. It's 45 minutes of railroad themed songs, and it came out really fun. You should definitely check this one out if you haven't. Now, I just recently changed my Grand Canyon diorama. Before, it was called the Grand Canyon Diorama on the Trail, and I played the entire section of On the Trail from the original Grand Canyon suite. What I did differently now is I edited the music to match exactly the cuts and the way it is played on the railroad. So it sounds exactly like the music as you would hear it when you're riding on the train, minus sound effects, because you're going to hear the sound effects when you listen to all of these all these ride-through Grand Circle tours. You'll hear the music with the sound effects there. So I wanted a version where you would just have the music, and it's cut the exact way that you hear it on the attraction. And this now is the entire Grand Canyon suite, including the On the Trail segment. And this is taken directly from the Walt Disney featurette from 1958. So this is the full original soundtrack version of the Grand Canyon, produced by Walt Disney in 1958. Now this is going to be the entire ride through of the Ford Magic Skyway with Walt Disney doing the narration. That's coming soon. This is, actually, no, that's what this is. This is already on the site. This is Walt Disney narrating the ride through so that you can already listen to. This is a segment from the TV special Disneyland Goes to the World's Fair, where they're introducing the animatronics and whatnot for the Ford Magic Skyway. That I still need to clean up. The Primeval World Diorama. This is the music from the actually I couldn't remember what this is. This is the audio from the TV special Disneyland Around the Seasons, where Walt Disney takes you through a tour of the brand new at that time Primeval World Diorama. That's what this is. And that's Chapter 2. Now let's move to Chapter 3, Main Street, USA. This is sort of the main boulevard of Main Street, USA. Starting from the Emporium and the Disneyland Showcase and leading all the way up to where Central Plaza begins. So this is sort of the main heart of Main Street. I redid this track. It was already on the site, but I cleaned up the audio significantly for this. It's very much the same as what was there before, but it's a brand new and improved version. This track is from that same 1961 special I just mentioned, where they take you on a tour, a Grand Circle tour on the train. This is the Main Street USA section of that Everyone's Hometown is taken from a Walt Disney World travelogue presentation. There was a Main Street USA section that could apply to Disneyland and Walt Disney World, so I added that here. This is the section from the 1980 home video cassette called A Day at Disneyland. This is the Main Street USA section from that video. This was exclusively on the Town Square chapter. I added it over here as well. If I'm skipping over things, that means that I haven't, it's not something I added recently, and it's not something I've made any changes to. So this is a whole new section I added to represent different versions of Main Street area music. You're actually listening to this one right now. And this is the Disneyland Paris background music. This is part of the project I'm currently working on where I'm adding the area music. The Disneyland 1992 version of the background music is right here in full. And I'm going to also be adding the Main Street evening loop for Disneyland Paris, as well as a World Bazaar from Tokyo Disneyland area music. Those are actually the next two projects that I'll be working on, so you might even be able to hear these by the time you're watching this video, depending on how late after March 1st you are watching this, because these are going to be added really soon. These are the next two things on my agenda. This gift shop song is a fun little jingle that I just sort of happened upon that just sort of talks about gift shops, and I thought it'd be fun to include. It's not Disney, but I think it applies to Main Street. This is the same exact track that I just talked about on the Town Square chapter. And this has the authentic music now. Before I had a different loop that's actually used somewhere else. This is sort of part of the loop, but I have background noises. I have the noises of customers inside and the clanging of cash registers. So this is sort of the sound effects abridged version of the area music for Main Street Emporium. So this is the track that I was using for Disneyland USA for the Emporium. Now I have it still available to listen to, but I have correctly identified it as the Emporium area music for Disneyland Paris, which is different than the music you hear in California's Emporium. There was a little bit of a confusion there between us Disney music collectors for a while, but we finally figured it all out. The Wurlitzer Music Store player piano is the exact same thing I just talked about, taken from those the Life of the Party albums. I've extended it so that it includes both albums, and I did some cleanup on it. This Wonderland Music Store is something I'll be working on soon as well, and I just took little portions of different Disneyland records from the era when the store was operating and made a little montage of the different audio clips of different records that pertain to this. So that's all. Actually, I'm including that as area music just because it's a collection of songs and it runs about an hour. So I will be working on that soon. It's on my current to-do list. I'm gonna be replacing this with more music. I found a whole album of organ grinder music. So very soon I'm gonna be adding a much longer version of this. So I recently added the entire album that they used 4 songs from it for the Main Street area music. but I decided to also include the full album with the narration that introduces each song. This is also found on the Disneyland Records chapter, but I decided to also include it here. So if you want to hear just what they play at the actual cinema, that's track 31, and if you want to hear the entire album, that's track 32. Track 34 is a song that is from a musical from the 70s, but it is all about silent movies, and it's sort of the perfect song to represent the Main Street Cinema, so I decided to include it. Steamboat Bill, Turkey in the Straw is the area music from Mickey's Toontown that plays Steamboat Willie and Turkey in the Straw. I thought it would be appropriate to include it here because they play Steamboat Willie inside the Main Street Cinema. As you can see, this is sort of my Main Street Cinema section of this chapter. Steamboat Bill is a vintage recording of the Melloman Quartet singing the song from Steamboat Willie, Steamboat Bill. Now this section here is going to be the actual audio from all of these cartoons. They play silently in the Main Street Cinema, but I'm going to play the actual audio because even though they play them silently, they actually are all sound cartoons. They just turn the sound off at Disneyland. I've already got Steamboat Willie on here, which is the only one they actually play the sound for. But I'm redoing Steamboat Willie. I've made some improvements, so this is going to get replaced with a new version soon. This is also going to get changed because of the corrections and fixes I made to Dateline Disneyland. I'm going to redo this because that involves this. This is a sort of an abridged clip show version of Dateline Disneyland that they played inside the cinema during the 50th anniversary of Disneyland. This is an area loop that is from Disneyland Paris. I don't know for sure if it plays in California, but I'm going to include it because it's fun. It's good. It's all ragtime piano, so I'm going to include that here. Moving right along. What else have I changed on this chapter? Okay, so this is a new section I added where I'm representing all sorts of different companies that have sponsored things on Main Street over the years. I already talked about this Beacons Van Lines and the Bank of America because they're also included in Town Square because these are part of Town Square. But I'm also going to include them here. The Maxwell House Coffee House has already been on the site. And then these are ones I'm going to be adding. And I've already added a few as well. Wurlitzer Music Store. I've already added the Swift Market House selection. This Upjohn Pharmacy, I'm redoing it. I'm going to change this. And then there's a few others. I've already redone. I had this on the site before, but I redid it. I have a new and improved version. It's already finished. It's here. These are basically old advertisements and whatnot from the 50s mainly that are from the era when these first operated in Disneyland. So it sort of sets the mood of what these companies were promoting at that time. I'm going to be replacing this with a much longer version. But I have this on here for now. It's going to get replaced with something different. Now, let's see what else I have that's changed for Main Street. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to include this or not. I can't find good audio for this. But currently, the orchestrion inside the Penny Arcade is playing Disney songs. And I don't have any of it. Nobody's made a recording of it. I don't have it. I did find some stuff that I might be able to use, but I'm not sure. It's not the best sound quality. It's not authentic. it's from other orchestrions or Nickelodeons playing a Disney song here or there. I'll see what I can do. It's sort of, this is in limbo right now. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to include this. The Candy Palace. This is something I just recently added, and it's a whole lot of fun. You're definitely going to want to check this one out. It's just a mix of all sort of popular songs that have a candy or sugar or sweets, edible sweets theme. Like, and it's not contemporary music. It's all from the 60s or earlier. So it's songs like The Candyman, On the Good Ship, Lollipop, even a couple Disney songs like A Spoonful of Sugar are included. So this is a lot of fun. I wasn't sure how to represent the Candy Palace, so I decided to just have a bunch of songs about candy represent it. This is going to be a selection of all sorts of albums that different pianists from Coke Corner have produced. So before I just had some of it, you know, sort of mixed in, and now I'm just going to have the entire album, and I'm including all the albums that I have for that. So those are all coming soon. But one of them is already done, the Rod Miller Ragtime. That's already was on the site, so I can't remember for sure, but I think I'm redoing it because this might be an abridged version. It might not include the full album. So I might be replacing this one too. There's a lot for me to remember in my head, so sometimes I'm not sure what I'm doing. It's a big surprise there. Alright, so now the final chapter I want to update you on, and this is a shorter chapter. This represents Central Plaza. So I recently added a few tracks that come from old audio from old television or theatrical travelogue type things that talk about Central Plaza. One of them comes from the 56th theatrical short Disneyland USA, and another one comes from An Adventure in the Magic Kingdom, which was a 1958 episode of the Disneyland TV series. I just recently added this Central Plaza transportation, which is just basically sound effects of all the different types of vehicles. And I think that I have I have a typo here. Hustle and for hustle. Energy and for hustle. That should be bustle. I'll fix that when we're done recording. This Plaza ice cream vendor is a commercial from the 80s that talks about Disney frozen treats. Churro Wagon is a collection of songs about churros, believe it or not. Partner Statue is again that Walt Disney quote, you know, where he says sitting on a bench eating peanuts, that whole thing. Set to different music than the music I have for Chapter 1's version. I'm going to be replacing the music for the Keystone Cops and the Dapper Dans. I have better recordings for those. So these are going to be redone. Meanwhile, you can listen to the old version. The Red Wagon Inn is the same thing that I had on the Main Street USA chapter, which was here it's representing the Red Wagon Inn. On Main Street it's representing the Market House, because Swift & Company sponsored both. So it's the same track. Little Red Wagon Inn is a song about little red wagons. I recently added this track, which is a jingle about Gerber. Is your baby a Gerber baby? And then the Baby Center atmosphere music, I think I accidentally skipped over this on Chapter 1, because this is also on Chapter 1. But over there it's called the Kennel Club area music. This is music put together by Jack Wagner. It's like real peaceful background music that they used for both the kennel and the baby center. This is a recent addition. And it's only part of the loop. We only know part of the loop. The rest of it is missing. All this is the same. I'm gonna be redoing the Monsanto track, making some corrections to it, making it longer and better. I recently added this. It's just the announcements they made for the mountain climbers. Originally, I just had this in Fantasyland, but since this is something you also watch from Central Plaza, I decided to include that. This is a better version of something I already had, Swiss Polka Band. I found better music and I replaced it. None of these things have changed. This is something I'm going to be adding. It's just going to be music from the new Disneyland band. Just have to edit that or do the final cleanup. This is the same as what's on Chapter 1 for the ice cream parlor. I'm also including it here for the Plaza Gardens, which was also sponsored by Carnation. Again, it's commercials from the 50s and 60s. I'm gonna be redoing this track. I'm cleaning it up. It's gonna be the same thing, but I did some cleanup on it. I'm redoing the Fantasy Fair Village background music as well. I've cleaned it up a little bit better. It's taken from a live recording. I don't have the source audio for this, but I think I did a little bit better job of cleaning it up, so there'll be a new and improved version of this coming soon. This is also going to be heavily extended. It's going to be almost a 2-hour loop, and I have it all put together. Right now, this is just a small portion of it, but I'm going to be replacing it with the full and complete loop very soon. It's on my list of loops. And then the very last thing is this section of audio from the different Royal Theater live shows that they do. Now, the best I could come up with was finding YouTube videos with as clean of audio as I possibly can, but they are live recordings. It's going to have its limitations, but I'm going to do my very best to clean it up. I've already put them all together. It's just a matter of going through and taking out all the baby crying and people yelling and, you know, in the audience and whatnot, to make it as clean and clear as I possibly can without distractions. So there you go. That's what's going on with chapters 1 through 4, and in the next episode, I guess you would call it an episode, of the Disneyland Magical Audio Tour update, which will be coming in April, I will talk about Chapter 6, which is Adventureland, Chapters 19, which is Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, Chapter 20, which is the Disneyland Hotel, and finally Chapter 27, which is Disneyland in TV Land. So those chapters I will update you on the next video, and after that I will just give you updates for each audio track I add as it is added going forward after that, because then we'll be caught up more and it won't be as crazy, because you see how long it took me to do just the first 4 chapters. If I did the other 4, it would be a 2.5-hour video, so we don't want to do that. So I hope everybody has a wonderful March, and you enjoy your St. Patrick's Day and your early spring. And again, I will see you all in April. Bye-bye.